unfortunately, guys, we won't be able to access it. We can only see it from this point because today that building is completely in ruins. It is a rectangular building standing tall to the end of the cathedral. It was adjoined to the cathedral in the 15th century by Archbishop Richard O'Headian, the same man who built the residential tower to house his choir. He built this as his own home on the site. Here on the site, we know the building as the Archbishop's Palace. But around Ireland you will find hundreds of these types of buildings. Today most of them, you will find them freestanding in the middle of a field. The majority of them would be in ruins today. They are known as tower houses. They were fortified homes built for Irish chieftains, mainly for defence. And the defence features of these buildings, they were quite simple, but they were extremely effective. The first thing I'd like you to notice is actually at the bottom, the window on the lower level of the building. That is in fact the only window on the lower level of the building. So again, very dark place to be if you were living inside. However, higher up as you look to the top floor, this is where the Archbishop lived, so he had a lot more windows to allow the natural light travel in. Again, the inside of this building was also whitewashed, like the Vicar's Court, brightening up the room for them. But why were they also widened? Because if attack was taking place, archers could fit inside those window frames, should I say, and defend the castle when necessary. The walls in all of these buildings, not just here, but in all the buildings throughout the entire site, they are metres thick. It made it difficult for intruders to knock them down or to even set them alight. And as you look up to the castle, can you see to your right hand side there is a cavity or a passageway? It's been exposed as a lot of rock has fallen away. These passages run throughout the entire site, and again, most of them you won't even know that they exist. They are dark, they are narrow, and doorways, like the Vicar's Court, are low. The darkness was for navigation. If you were an intruder who had gotten that far, again, it would have slowed you down, so again, giving the Archbishop time to get out and make his escape. The narrowness of passages. Why were these passages so narrow? Because if 200 people were attacking, they could only come at you with single file. And the doorways were low. It wasn't because the Irish were extremely short or anything like that. I can assure you it was done for defence. Because the buildings were so dark, they hopefully didn't see the low door. They hit their head off it. And I can assure you, if you hit your head off a limestone doorway, it would slow you down. The last Archbishop to live here was Archbishop Price, and he decided to abandon the castle. And in the 1730s, he had a new palace built for himself. Today that palace remains intact on the main street of town. It's known as the Cashel Palace Hotel, and he moved from here down onto the main street, and I don't blame him. You can imagine these buildings would have been dull, damp and dreary buildings to live in December and January at 4 o'clock in the afternoon when it gets quite dark. Again, it would probably have been a lonely place to be. And so once they did that, as I said at the start, they left the buildings fall into disrepair, and in 1848, it was around the time of the famine here in Ireland, there was a huge storm known as the Night of the Great Wind, and a lot of rocks fell away from this building. This is all that's left on the ground for you to see here, but a similar piece to this was shipped to Wisconsin, to Watertown, to a church known as St. Bernard's, and they used a piece from here and it was added to their church over there, so a little piece was taken away. Now, if anybody's heading the direction of Cork today, Cahir Castle, it's only 20 minutes from here, I'd highly recommend a visit. Or if you're on your way to Killarney, at Ross Castle on the lakes of Killarney, a beautifully restored tower house that you can go through, I'd highly recommend them. There's many more of them throughout the country, but if you do get the opportunity, definitely go visit one of these buildings. I'm going to bring you now into the cathedral, hopefully under the bell tower. We get a little bit of shelter from the tower.